This is the lesson on comparative advantage, and in this one we're looking at who should trade and what should they trade. So first, just to talk about why do people trade. If you think about it, if people didn't trade anything at all, we didn't buy, we didn't sell, nobody traded anything, then you would only have the things that you make yourself. So if you don't make the clothes that you're wearing, you wouldn't have those. If you don't spin the cotton to make the clothes that you're wearing, you don't have those. If you don't raise the chickens, kill the chickens, defeather the chickens, then you don't have chicken. So if there is no trade, then you don't have much of anything, because in our society we're very specialized and we only do a few things and we only have those things. So why do people trade? So they can have more, okay? Everyone specializes in the production of goods and services and trades to others. So we specialize in a certain area and then we trade that good to other people. So I specialize in teaching, and in return I get paid. That's my trade. And then I use that money to buy other goods, clothes and food and entertainment items and things like that. The more access to trade means the more choices and higher standard of living. So trade is good. The more access we have to other items, then the more we can have. We have a higher standard of living. So the idea of comparative advantage is the economist's way of figuring out who should be specializing in what and who should be trading what good items. So we need to go back and review per unit cost. Per unit cost is the opportunity cost divided by the units gained. So let's start with the example. Assume it costs you $50 to produce 5 t-shirts. What is your per unit cost for each shirt? Okay, so we're making 5 shirts, so that's the units gained. It cost us $50, so that's the opportunity cost. 50 divided by 5 equals 10. So our per unit cost for each shirt is $10. So now let's take money out of the equation and look at other things. Instead of producing 5 shirts, you could have made 10 hats. So now what's our cost? What's your per unit opportunity cost for each shirt in terms of hats given up? Okay, we made 5 shirts, so that's the units gained. We gave up 10 hats in order to do that, so that's the opportunity cost. 10 divided by 5 equals 2. 1 shirt costs 2 hats. Okay? 1 shirt equals 2 hats. Now, how about the other way around with the hats? What's your per unit opportunity cost for each hat in terms of shirts given up? So we're making hats, so we get 10 hats, that's our units gained, and in exchange for that we gave up 5 shirts. That's our opportunity cost. 5 divided by 10 is 1 hat. 1 hat costs half of a shirt, or 1 hat costs half of a shirt. That's the per unit opportunity cost. When we're trying to determine who has an advantage in making a certain item, we want to look at the per unit opportunity cost for that person and for the other person and see whose is less. Okay? Alright, let's look at another example. Ronald McDonald produces 20 pizzas or 200 burgers. So he can choose to make 20 pizzas or he can choose to make 200 burgers. Okay? Papa John can produce 100 pizzas or 200 burgers. So what's Ronald's opportunity cost for 1 pizza in terms of burgers given up? So he can make 20 pizzas or 200 burgers. What's his cost for 1 pizza? So to make 20 pizzas, that's the units gained. On top we're going to have the 200 burgers. So the cost is the 200 burgers divided by the units gained, 20. So for 1 pizza, 200 divided by 20 is 10. For 1 pizza costs 10 burgers. All right. Now, what's Ronald's opportunity cost for 1 burger in terms of pizzas? So the units gained, 200 burgers. What did he lose? 20 pizzas. 20 divided by 200 is 1/10. So 1 burger costs Ronald 1/10 of the pizza. Make sense so far? Okay. Now, what's John's opportunity cost for 1 pizza in terms of burgers given up? So John is making pizza, so he's going to gain 100 pizzas and lose 200 burgers. 200 divided by 100 is 2. So 1 pizza costs John 2 burgers. All right? What's John's opportunity cost for 1 burger in terms of pizza? So we're gaining the burgers, 200, and we're losing the pizzas, 100 on top. 100 divided by 200 is half. So 1 burger costs John half a pizza. So when you're trying to figure out comparative advantage, you need to figure out what the opportunity cost per unit is. So what does 1 pizza cost? What does 1 burger cost? And that's what we've done for Ronald's and Papa John's. Now, who has the comparative advantage? Comparative advantage is who has the lowest opportunity cost. So Ronald, we'll look at the pizzas. It costs, it costs Ronald 10 burgers to make 1 pizza, and John, it costs him 2 burgers to make 1 pizza. See how this opportunity cost is less than this opportunity cost? That means that John has the comparative advantage in making pizzas because he has the lower opportunity cost, and that's right here. John has a comparative advantage in production of pizza. Okay? Now burgers. Ronald can make 1 burger and only lose 1/10 of a pizza. John can make 1 burger and lose half of a pizza. 1/10 is smaller than 1/2, so he's got the best, he's got the lowest opportunity cost. So Ronald has a comparative advantage in production of burgers. Okay? All right, so here's our definitions of comparative and absolute advantage. Absolute advantage, the producer that can produce the most output or requires the least amount of inputs or resources. So if we look back at the Ronald and Papa John example, Papa John has an absolute advantage in pizza because he can produce 100 pizzas while Ronald can only produce 20. We're not comparing it to the other item, we're not comparing opportunity costs, we're just saying who can make more, okay? Papa John can make pizzas, all right? Comparative advantage though, is you're looking at your other items, what are you giving up, and your lowest opportunity cost. The producer with the lowest opportunity cost has a comparative advantage. So Ronald has a comparative advantage in burgers because he has the lowest per unit opportunity cost. Okay? Even if a country is better at everything, like the United States is usually better at making lots of things, or they have been in the past, but we still have things that we should specialize in if you look at our opportunity costs to make those things. Okay? Countries and people should trade if they will have a relatively lower opportunity cost. Ronald and Papa John should trade their burgers and their pizza because Ronald, it costs him more to make those pizzas than it does for Papa John, so he needs to be trading the pizzas with Papa John so he doesn't have to spend time making those because Papa John can make it faster, can make it a lower opportunity cost. All right, they should specialize in the good that is cheaper for them to produce. All right, now when you're determining comparative advantage, when you're doing that division thing, it's very important to look at the type of problem that you've been given. If it's an output question, you need to remember the acronym OOO. Output, other goes over. It's just like the pizza one that we did and the one we did before that, okay? So this problem is the number produced in 1 hour, the number of CDs produced in an hour, the number of pounds of beef produced in 1 hour, or whatever, okay? So this is an output question. These are items, beef and CDs, that you can go get at the store, the grocery store, the music store, whatever, okay? In that case, the per unit opportunity cost of CDs would be beef over CDs. Or if it's the per unit opportunity cost of beef, it would be CDs over beef, because the other item, we're looking at CDs, the other item would be beef, goes on top, goes over, okay? Output questions, other goes over, OOO, okay? Now, if it's an input question, it's like this graph says the number of hours to produce a unit. So it takes 4 hours to produce a unit of bread, or 2 hours to produce a unit of corn. These numbers do not represent actual bread or corn. Those are things that you get at the store. It represents hours, time. You cannot go to the store and buy time, okay? So that's an input. That's a input question. It's looking at the things that go into making the item. If that's the case, you have to reverse the division. So input is IOU, input other goes under. The per unit opportunity cost of bread would be bread over corn. Okay, so the United States, if we're looking at US numbers and we're looking for the cost to make bread, we would put bread 4 over corn 2. Bread over corn. Because it's an input question. Whatever we're looking for, we'll put on top, and the other item we'll put on the bottom. Input. If it's an output, the other item goes on top, and the item that we're looking at goes on bottom. Okay? We'll have lots of practice of that soon. All right, and the last thing is just terms of trade. What countries charge each other for the traded items? So if U.S. is making bread and Puerto Rico is making corn, how much do they charge each other to trade? You need to make sure that that charge is lower than your current opportunity cost. That's it, okay? If it costs Kenya 2 radios to make a pineapple, then when they get radios from India, they need to make sure that they're giving less than 1 pineapple to India, that it's costing them less, okay? Terms of trade, what countries charge each other for traded items, and if you're going to trade, you need to make sure, whatever the terms are, that it's less than your current opportunity cost. That's it.